Quick video today, just kind of an in-between video between the last one and the EPDM one, which will come up shortly. It was to answer a load of questions really on the roof decking. You'll have to apologise with the wind noise. It's about 50-mile-an-hour gusts outside and struggling to keep that marquee down. So I guess a couple of reasons I went for the OSB. The primary reason is I could get it in a tongue and groove sheet, and I'll come on to that in a little bit more in a while. Strength-wise, they're both pretty equal, and certainly adequate for flat roofing. The OSB 3 is a really standardised sort of thickness and everything. The ply can fluctuate a little bit, especially that cheap sort of softwood shuttering ply. Anyway, we got the endless amount of questions regarding the tongue and groove, and the reason is tongue and groove is because I'm using a cold roof here rather than a warm roof, so I need that constant ventilation underneath the deck, between the insulation and the decking. And if I was to use square edge boards, then with a square edge board you need to support all the edges, which is fine along the joists, but of course where the other end of the board is, you'll need to put in a load of blocking or noggings there to support it. And as soon as you do that, then you actually block the ventilation that goes all the way from soffit to soffit. I'm sure there's probably other ways around that, but certainly for me it made sense to go tongue and groove where you don't need to support the long edge. You are meant to support the short edge, and that's why, bearing in mind it came in the wrong size sheets, I was going to start putting additional timbers. I've actually decided against that because most of them fell off by kind of 10-20 mil, and really for a roof it's absolutely fine. It's going nowhere. If it was a flooring, then maybe you'd want to make sure they're supported. OSB 3, probably a little bit more environmentally friendly. It's made in the country where you buy it normally, so this is UK made, or certainly European, and there's a load more kind of reasons why from an environmental point of view it's a lot better, because plywood comes usually straight from the other side of the world using huge trees and all sorts of nasties in the glue, whereas this is probably a safer way to go. Anyway, that aside, we went with the OSB, and we had those problems with the metric and imperial, and we had those problems with the imperial and the metric, and a load of people were saying, well, you cannot get metric size OSB sheets. You'd know that if you were in the trade and all this, and actually you can. They're made by Norboard or Sterling Board or whatever, and they specify clearly that they do a metric size sheet, and that is usually the one stocked, and 3 places that I called up all stocked the metric. It just so happened that when I bought the batch from Wicks, there was a mixed batch right at the end of a run. I got them down, I think they were about £12 a sheet, and while that does work out a little bit more than the square edge boards, you don't have all that extra timber in, so it's probably not miles apart. Anyway, they were labelled up wrong, and I went back in and I checked, and believe it or not, I bought 40 sheets and 4 of them were metric. So just luck of the draw. I probably just had the last of the dodgy batch, but that was a bit of a pain, but hey, we live on. Right, other questions. Reef Light. Why don't I put Reef Light in here? Any glazing at all on the roof? Well, a couple of reasons. One, we are basing this whole project on a height limit to avoid a full planning application for a big pitched roof. They were happy for us to go ahead and do it on the basis that it wouldn't go any higher. And if you do a Reef Light, even if you get a really slim one, it still has to be on 150 mil upstand, and that would have obviously taken us a bit high. But the sole reason, really, the main reason, is because this is going to be a workshop studio certainly for the next few months, where I want no natural light really, because I use lighting. And secondary to that, once the workshop's built and I've cleared all the workshop out, this is going to become a family room, which will probably be a cinema room or that sort of thing. And again, having a big 3 metre by 2 metre lantern in the roof with some sort of blind system is going to be tricky. And to get anything of the right scale for this room, we'd be looking at £2,000 plus. So again, a few reasons. Also, if you've got a cold roof, you've obviously got to support the aperture of your roof glazing. Well, you actually stop the ventilation as well. There's some issues there. So flipping that on its head, the very best route we could have gone is a warm roof. So we've got the insulation below in our build-up, with some insulation on the underside of the joists. That's the prevent thermal bridging through the timbers. I'll come into this in a little bit more detail when we come to insulate. If you can do a flat roof and you can go up higher, stick your insulation on top of the boards. It's a warm roof build up then. You've got 100, 120 mil, whatever's required, on top of your OSB or plywood. And then on top of that, then you put your decking and your roof covering, your EPDM or felt. Sometimes those insulation sheets will actually take the roof covering, so check around when you're doing that. The reason I couldn't do that, again, is because of that height build-up. We would have put all the insulation on top, we would have gone too high. Plus, really, when you start putting, you know, if you've got a 200 mil joist, then you've got decking, then you've got 120 mil insulation, and then decking again, you end up with something like a 400 millimeter fascia board, which if it's not designed well, it can look really clumsy, and I didn't want to go that route anyway. So I've gone for that ventilation across the whole thing. That's the end of the insulation side of things. Other questions I got asked: yes, I should have put the blocking in down the middle first, but like I said, I had to get this roofing up. Dad was only with me for a day. The weather was just about to turn, so I came in afterwards and I put the blocking in. And the reason why, though, I could do that is because our OSB is not secured into those. And I'll give you a shot from the side in a second, and you'll be able to see that there's that 50 millimeter gap above there. So I use a shorter timber for our supports, which again leaves it free on top, which is really vital, because otherwise you just build up condensation and things underneath your decking, and it starts getting nasty from the inside out. Other questions: ring shank nails or screws? People were saying, why don't you use screws? Well, I think I covered it, but it's a damn sight slower, it's more expensive, and yes, it probably would have had even more holding power, but having banged a load of ring shank nails into a scrap piece and tried to pull it out, you soon realise that, you know, they're not just staples, they are pretty whopping great fixings, and you're never going to start ripping that out. I did put some screws around the perimeter, but it was just belts and braces to keep Dad happy, really. Another thing with the square edge boards is you need to leave a 3 or 4 mil expansion gap between the boards. It's usually written on them, actually. And if you do that with the square edge boards, when you put your EPDM on top, unless you fill, yeah, I think you can fill it with silicone sometimes, but anyway, if you leave that expansion gap and then you put your EPDM on, it can actually show through. So another benefit with the tongue and groove was that the expansion gap is built into tongue and groove, so it shows on the bottom, but actually when you butt them in, you don't want to ram them in too tight, but you can actually get a much more flush finish on top, which leaves the whole thing nice and smooth. And then, just because we're fussy, Dad went around with the belt sander and just smoothed everything out a little bit with all the joins. And also, where the EPDM goes over the edge, we actually ran the sander over that a little bit, just because you do take it over the edge of the OSB, and just to prevent any kind of sharp bits and stuff sticking through. Not that it would puncture it, it's really strong stuff, but we just rounded it over. I think that's it. I put extra metal work and strapping down. Building controller coming around later to check the roof structure, and then I can get it on and insulate. And yes, you're getting a bit of a sneak peek here. I'm about a week ahead of you, so I've managed to get a lot of the stud work done, ready for the insulation and plasterboard, but that will definitely be in a future video, because I need to empty the workshop back into here halfway through, really, because I can't afford to have that marquee out there over the whole winter. It's just too risky, especially seeing the wind picking up today. But that is pretty much it. I think I've answered most of the questions I was getting, but if I haven't, then do stick them down below. So the next video that comes out on the garage will be the EPDM roof going down, and that video was a collaboration with Rubber for Roofs, who sent us all the stuff we needed for the roof, which we're very grateful for, and hopefully our video will make the most of that product and kind of show you how easy it is, because of all the stuff we've done so far, I think we found it the easiest to do. So thanks for watching. Remember, if you can, do it yourself, and we'll see you next time.